Hey guys, this is NitroBex, and I got something that's not quite a review. We're going to look at two devices side by side. They're fairly similar. We're going to do a shootout between the DB-DNA30. This is a 30-watt box mod. Vapor Joe gave it to me for all the work I do on Mod Envy. Is an involved power board. Um, it's black. It's regulated. It goes up to 30 watts. Now, I currently have it set at 20 watts if you can't see that screen, because I'm going to be comparing it to the A to Z Vapor World Hannah clone, if you will. It's the GNOME 20. Now, the odd thing is when I power this on, it says evolve for just a split second and it goes back to normal. So, yeah, let's take a look at these side by side. First thing first, you know I covered prices. The price difference between these are going to be drastic. It's $170 drastic. So the DB mod, the authentic, the real DNA30 mod is going to run you $240 once you can get one. The GNOME 20, it's going to run you $70. Okay. Feel wise, they both have roughly the same weight. The DB mod's a little heavier. DB mod's a little taller, a lot thicker, and a little more narrow. Okay. The up and down buttons feel exactly the same. The GNOME has that same little touch sensor switch. The DB has the big old horn button. The connectors. The DB has a slightly deeper well, and it's got a brass connector. The GNOME has a steel connector and a little shallower of a well. So, enough looking at them side by side. Let's start lining up features. The DB-DNA30 can go up to 30 watts. It's a DNA30. The GNOME 20 stops at 20. So that's why the DB is set to 20, so I can test them side by side. The up button turns your power up on both. The down button turns your power down on both. The fire button actuates the firing on both. Now, with the DB-DNA30, you can also click it 5 times to lock it, as well as you can on the GNOME. But once you've locked it on the DNA30 DB, you can access stealth mode, which turns off the screen. You can access left-hand mode, which flips the display upside down. Also, while it's on, you can hold down both the up and the down arrows on the DB to lock in your wattage. Does not work like that on the GNOME. The GNOME, if you shake it, there's a very, very minor battery rattle. You might have been able to hear that, you might not. The DB, there's no battery rattle at all. So very, very, very minor battery rattle. Let's get to vaping. So the first thing I'm throwing on here is what I normally run on my DNA30 device. I run it at 22.5 watts, so the 2.5 watts less isn't going to make a huge deal. It is a 1.5 ohm K-Fun at 20 watts. Okay, that's what I'm used to out of the DB. Let's try out the GNOME here. Okay, so atomizer's over on the GNOME. Vape experience is miraculously very close. The GNOME thinks it's 0.1 ohms higher, so it's actually hitting a smidge harder. A smidge harder. Okay. So This is 1.5, 1.6 atomizer. Now, most people build their K funds at 1 ohm. Why don't we try one at 1 ohm? Okay. DB 30, 1 ohm on the black edition, still at 20 watts. Sorry, it's a little dry. There we go. Vapes well. Let's put it on the gnome and take a drink. Okay. Same thing on the gnome. Again, just a little tiny harder of a hit out of the gnome because it thinks it's 0.1 ohms higher than it actually is. Okay, so everything up to this point, if you do not go sub-ohm, stop here. They're extremely similar. The gnome performs a little tiny better. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. $170 cheaper, okay? Okay, so now that you are a sub-ohmer and you're still with me, let's get into some more differences. So I got a Cobra I'm throwing on the DB 30. Again, 20 watts. I'm going to press the button. Lo and behold, it fires. This is built at 0.6. Now, remember, my gnome has been reading 0.1 higher, so it should read it at 0.7. And when I press the fire button, it says check atomizer. Will not fire. Okay, maybe there's something wrong with the pin on there, even though it's screwed out. Let's try something else. This is a dual coil dripper setup. This is 0.5. Fires just like it's supposed to. Put it on the gnome. Check atomizer. Not firing. Okay. Can anything kill the DNA 30 versus the China DNA 20? Let's put on another one of my drippers. This is the Storm. I have it wrapped at 0.3, and I press the fire button, and it says check atomizer. And lo and behold, I put it on the gnome at 0.3. It also says check atomizer and will not fire. So if you are a sub-ohmer that likes to switch in between your DNA 30 and your MacMods, and you build around about 0.5, DNA 30 unfortunately has to be your decision there. Now, at the end of the day, most of the time on my DNA 30s, what I run is I run my K-Fun, or my Russian 91 clone at like 1.5 because I turn up the wattage and I turn it to 22.5. I can tell you I'm really not missing that 2.5 watts. It's a little cooler than it would normally be, but not really missing too much there. So I guess my final thoughts on this is if you're a strict sub-ohmer that likes to fill in with a DNA and be able to migrate your addies between your mechs and your regulateds, you're probably going to have to drop the extra $170. If you're not a dedicated sub-ohmer, if you're looking for something to carry around and tank, that $170 can buy a whole lot of atomizer. That $170 can buy a whole lot of booze. That $170 could buy a whole lot of, like, I don't know, video games. Yeah, it's probably worth saving it if you're if you're not looking for something that will work on both a mech and a regulated device at the same power levels. So that's a rundown for it. Sorry to be such a split decision there, but it really comes down to, are you a sub-ohmer, are you not a sub-ohmer, and what are you going to use? So that's the first look. I will be doing a full out review on this after I see how it holds up. But I wanted to give you a comparison. I've had a lot of people asking me what's the difference between the China clones on the 20 watt regulated and the real evolved DNA 30s. There you go.